This is the politics of everything, and I'm your host, Amber Daines. Welcome to the podcast where we want to discuss the politics of everything, from money to motherhood, nutrition to narcissism, startups to secularism, the environment to equality, and much more. Our guests are experts in their field or topic of choice, even if you've not yet heard their name. This is a bipartisan podcast, so while we love exploring varied views and get a buzz from a healthy debate, by no means is this a one-sided forum for any one political view. So please listen up and enjoy the politics of everything. Jacqui Lewis is a bit of an entrepreneur powerhouse. Today, along with her husband, she is co-founder of a global school, The Broad Place, where she embraces regular, stressed humans and gets them skilled up in accessible tools and practices so that they become more creative, more grounded, healthier, and happier. Jacqui takes ancient knowledge and makes it easy to understand and easy to employ in our modern daily lives. An educator, facilitator, and speaker on clarity and high-grade living, Jacqui teaches integrated meditation all around the world, including Sydney, Melbourne, Byron Bay, Los Angeles, London, and beyond. She runs workshops and talks centered around enhancing creativity, increasing clarity, and expanding consciousness. Before she taught meditation, she was immersed in the world of advertising, marketing, and branding, so knows a thing or two about being stressed. Jacqui was included by David Jones in a national campaign in 2016 for the most influential women in Australia and has taught at LinkedIn, ANZ, Centre Group, amongst many other companies. Today, I'm finding out more as we discuss the politics of meditation. Welcome, Jacqui.
Thanks, Amber.
So, what did you want to do when you grew up and, your childhood kind of dream story, and how did that pan out for you? Did you do it?
Well, funnily, when I was a little kid, my brother is 3 years younger than I am, and he was born with spina bifida, so he's disabled. And I was so concerned about him falling behind in everything in life, let alone school, I actually started teaching him. So every year that I was in kindergarten, and then year 1 and then year 2, I would teach him everything that I was learning so that he was ahead of the game. So literally how to read, all his colours, how to write. And I think as little kids, you love your teacher, and being a teacher is a really cool thing in a small mind, being a teacher is going to be the best job ever. And so I when I was little, I wanted to be a teacher. And funnily, that's what I am now. But there was a big gap in between that being realised.
That's very cool. So your initial career path, what did you do and how do you reflect on that experience now that you're no longer in it?
So interestingly, I started off as an interior architect and furniture designer and graphic designer was all my, straight out of high school. That was my education. And I worked in those industries for quite a while and then moved into advertising and marketing and PR and branding. Now, all of those areas have the same thing in that they're creative experience. And interestingly, in marketing and branding, what I was trying to do is help brands and businesses and the people within them communicate themselves on a higher level. Now, so there was a lot of things that were learned in that experience, and now I just concentrate on the individual rather than the business. But the creativity piece and being in flow and being in alignment and understanding values are all similar things, just different industries, and presented very, very differently, can I add?
I bet. So how did you come across the world of meditation? Was it something that you practiced at a young age, or did you literally have to get sort of to a point where you needed it? Like, what's the experience you've had of meditation in the early days?
So when I was a little kid, one of the things I would do, and this was I'm talking from the age of sort of 6, 7, 8, 9. We spent a lot of time in hospitals because of my brother, and I had a lot of time by myself, and I was bored a lot. And I would sit with my eyes closed and imagine this sort of expansive experience. And I would go into nature as well. We lived on a big national reserve, and I would sit in the reserve and stare out at the horizon. And I was doing, funnily, what I now know as meditation when I was small. And then I came back to it when I was 18, and it was due to stress and anxiety. I started doing yoga. The teachers that I was learning under were doing a little bit of meditation, and I became, I recognized there were particular states that I was having that reminded me of when I was little, and I really wanted to dive into that. And then it was like a decade of mishmash, learn everything, try everything. It was a big hot mess, but I was really into it. And then I officially got a daily practice, as in a technique that I continue to do now 10 years on, is the one that I teach, which is Vedic meditation. But, it's been now 20 years of practice, and I think I've had every meditation experience that you can have, from learning and studying in Japan and India, and obviously here in Australia, and trying it all really. So it's been a big journey.
Wow. And how does that all culminate in what the Broad Place does today? And really, how did you get that business started? Like, what's that transition point from the world of advertising and marketing? And obviously your husband's had his own businesses as well. But, how did you get to the point where this is what you were going to do? And how do you turn that into what is now the Broad Place?
So the Broad Place initially was it was an experiment in helping people that were just like us, that were really engaged, living very modern lives, usually very tech-driven and dynamic and demanding and high-strung. And how do we help people that were interested in engaging with meditation and being more creative and even being more spiritual and being more conscious, but didn't necessarily want to give up wearing deodorant or become a vegan, or, think that a lot of people think, I have to, I can't drink red wine anymore. And for us, it's been a way of combining ancient knowledge with modern living. And so we formed the Broad Place to see if we could share what we'd learned with other people. And interestingly, I think due to right time and right place as well, and that's continuing to grow, there is a new forging of a path, whereby it doesn't have to be like a monk living in the modern world. We can actually just employ the principles and the techniques and the education and flourish in a modern world, which is fascinating. So the Broad Place is very much about that. It's about helping people elevate themselves in the life they already live, as opposed to giving them a whole new set of structure and paradigms in which they have to live through. So it's how do we take philosophy, how do we take technique and education and live a higher grade life from that standpoint?
And just on that term, what does high grade living really mean?
That's a great question. High grade living for us is, because it's a term that we've coined, is we always teach about how do you live from a higher plane of creativity, or how do you live a more high vibrational life, or even positivity. How do you have a higher quality in your language and your mindset? And so high grade living is very much a term that encompasses that. And it's not necessarily about adding a lot more stuff in. It's usually about trimming out the stuff that's not working and doing a full audit of where you're at in particular areas of your life, and then editing, and then from there, so clearing out and then refining. So this lovely, everyone's going to have a different version of what high grade living means to them. For some people, it's around how they communicate. For some people, it's their home. For some people, it's their work environment. For some people, it's their relationships. And they are interested in applying those principles to have a higher grade version of what that is for them.
Very interesting. So do you think meditation is for everyone? And look, the reality is many of us are very busy, we're hyper-connected, and you do sort of allude to the idea you don't have to give up all your tech and all your sort of comforts, if you like, of modern life to be a great meditator and maybe achieve a high-grade life. But what is meditation really all about, and how can we start on this journey if we've never done it before?
Yeah, great. So I'm going to answer the first question, which is meditation for everyone? And I honestly don't think everything is for everyone. I hear a lot of meditation teachers, say, yes, meditation is for absolutely everyone. But I think we need to start with a little bit of realism. And there's nothing that's for everyone on the face of the earth. However, from that, I'd like to also say that I've never taught anyone meditation that hasn't been able to do it. So meditation is for everyone if they want to be able to access meditation and be able to do it with the right technique. And all of our students absolutely love their practice. But I'm sort of more and more becoming against big blanket statements like yoga is for everyone or veganism is for everyone. And these sorts of statements I don't think help the cause, because nothing's for everyone. The second part of that is that hyper-busy, super-connected living means that we are more compressed. So we've got more on our plate. Or if you think of it like your mobile phone, we've got more apps, we've got more photos, we've got more messages being downloaded, and our phones are getting fuller and fuller. So our brains are exactly like that. We've got more information being input every single day. from that point, that's why we need meditation, because it's like clearing out the caches. It's clearing out all the irrelevant stuff that we no longer need, so that then we can be more connected into the world, not just overwrought and run and fraught. So if we find the time for meditation, and it is a discipline, it's like anything. It's anything that we want to do in our lives, we have to make the time for it. It doesn't appear magically from nowhere, but when we do make the time for meditation, everyone that practices Vedic meditation will attest they feel like they have more time. And it's because they're thinking more clearly, they're more grounded, they're more conscious, they're not as reactive, they're more responsive. And so what they're doing with their time and how they are in their days is much more dynamic. And so if you ask students, they always say, look, I don't know how, but I take time to meditate and I feel like I have more time in the day. But it's one of those things, you have to be able to meditate. You have to meditate to be able to have that experience.
Absolutely. It's interesting that people feel like they have more time. And I think it's when you're giving that analogy about you're clearing the caches, or we've got all those tabs open in our brain, it is true. It's being able to clear that and cleanse that and almost reset, I imagine, how you feel about, what you have to do and what's on your plate for the next day, month, year, or whatever.
Yeah, look, it's a little reboot. And a lot of students, the hardest time, I think, in the day is the afternoon to fit in your second meditation. But all students say, and myself included, you fit in that little 10 to 20-minute meditation. Sometimes it's only 15 minutes. With this practice, we recommend no less than 10 and no more than 20. But even if you do 12 or 13 minutes, your productivity boosts so much more in the afternoon. So you fit in the meditation, and what would have taken a little while, and you're dribbling around and you're distracted, instead you're hyper-focused. You're really present and you're getting it done at a greater speed with better quality. So a lot of our students will just see it as an investment in their time. They're just going to invest that 15 minutes is 1% of your day. So they go, I'm going to invest that 1% to enhance the rest of the afternoon and the quality of my work.
It's a great return on investment if those stats work. So that's great to know. So what do you think some of the biggest myths around meditation that you've heard, and how can we all enjoy the benefits from meditation? Give us a little example perhaps of something we might learn in your practice.
Oh, okay. So there's so many myths. We would need an hour and a half.
Of course, the biggest ones.
The biggest one is that you need to stop thinking.
Yes.
That's the biggest one. People go, I need to stop thinking. Now, the key thing with meditation is to know that it's like exercise. There's so many different techniques and they all present differently. So you practice them differently, the results are different, and with some meditation techniques, it is about getting rid of thoughts. But with the type that I teach, we use a mantra, which is a sound. And what happens in the meditation is the mantra and the thoughts do coexist, and you have times with just the mantra, and you have times with thoughts, and you have times with no thoughts. So what it means is there's no straining and pushing away. I feel so sorry for people that have sat down by themselves with no training at all and gone, thoughts be gone. It's like saying to your body, please stop my heart beating. They are just always going to be there. So that's the most common one. And if anyone listening is frustrated with that, you just haven't learned the right technique yet. And the other one is that you need to meditate in a quiet place, which is my favorite.
Yes. You picture people having to find a quiet room, eyes shut, perfect silence, maybe some birds tweeting, all that sort of stuff. And that's not going to be reality for people.
No, sitting on a lammy, whales, singing in the background, and a stream trickling. None of that you need. Again, every meditation technique is differently. So I'm only speaking about the one about Vedic that we teach, but it's very much about the resilience of meditation. And the funny thing is, all meditation comes from India, and it's one of the noisiest places on the face of the earth. Even I've studied in the hills of the Himalayas, and it's still noisy up there. So your internal noise is usually always going to be as noisy as your external. Most of my students meditate in the back of Ubers, on buses, on trains, on airplanes, at home with the kids playing, at home with the TV on, or music playing in the background, because that's modern life. And they will sit and they will be able to meditate no matter what's going on outside of them. That's a resilient practice, and that's the type that I think we need in the modern world, because as soon as we find we have a structure, like, I need a special chair and a special incense and special this and special that, you know what, we're not meditating. There's just too many barriers to entry for us. So finding a practice that means we can do it anywhere, that might be, oh my gosh, students of mine meditate in fire escapes, under their desks, in meeting rooms, in the funniest places, train stations, anywhere that you can sit with your back supported which is also another misconception, that you need to be uncomfortable when you meditate, otherwise you're not doing it properly, then they are able to meditate anywhere.
That's amazing. So give us a little example of how, perhaps from your own experience, you've, taught someone or you had your own experience and then you've suddenly seen that benefit. So you talk about things like greater clarity, more productivity. What would be a really tangible example of that we can all relate to?
The result that people talk about the most is the sense of clarity. That's the thing that everyone says, I just feel more clear. I know myself better. I can see things for what they are. I'm not as blindsided by what's going on in my life, and I'm not as confused. So that comes from a deep alignment with who they are, as well as more vision and clearness in the way in which they're seeing everything that they're doing and everything and everyone that they're interacting with. On a more abstract level, I'd like to include this one, though, because a student of mine recently said this to me, and I loved it, and because I hear it a lot. And I said to her, how are you going? And we bumped into each other, and she goes, and she looks kind of frustrated, and she's like, you know what? I'm happy for no reason. And I said, you seem kind of
That's a good thing.
Yeah, but she goes, I seem frustrated because it's dawning on me that since I started meditating every day with this technique, I'm now able to access happiness that's not tethered to something. And it's now at my age, she was in her 40s, and she goes, now at my age that I realized that before this, every single time I felt happy, it was tied to something. It was because the kids were finally in bed, or I'd just gotten the project signed off on, or, I'd gotten my bonus, or I'd gotten my nails done, or I'd gone to a fancy restaurant, or whatever it was. It was, I'm happy because of these things. I wasn't just joyous because I was being alive. I was alive. I was in my day. And she said, now I feel that all the time. I walk down the street, I feel like I'm smiling at strangers for no reason. And she said, I feel light and I feel happy. And it's not because of anything in particular in that moment. And students say this a lot. And it sounds kind of small and insignificant, but for me, it's such a huge thing because a lot of the time we are tethering our happiness to stuff outside of us. It's not coming from within us. And I think that's one of the most valuable things about practice.
And something we can all definitely relate to in terms of our modern life and all that striving, I'll be happy when, that kind of statement too, that once you achieve that mountain that you'll be fine or, like you say, you get the promotion or the money in the bank or whatever it might be. So that sounds amazing. So talking about money, how do you create financial success from a business that's quite narrow in its niche? Like I know the Broad Place has a lot of offerings, but really what you're selling is the Vedic meditation practice and everything else hinging on that. So how have you really leveraged that into something that's sustainable financially?
Look, it is incredibly narrow in the niche. So if you look at self-development as a huge, broad area, we sit within a very small area of that. If you look at education as a broad area, which we provide, again, we sit within a micro niche we focus on creativity and clarity. If you look at spirituality as a huge banner, we sit very tightly within that as in spirituality, specifically modern living. So even if you go to look at all the areas in which we sit in, even retreats, even meditation, we are niche within all of them. And the way in which we've been able to be financially, I'm going to say stable and thrive is that we are incredibly aligned in what we do. So we make sure that everything is of a certain standard. We are constantly evolving and tweaking and adding and layering on to what we offer. So it takes a lot more work in that regard, and it's a very creative process to keep on elevating everything that we do. But I believe it's because that making everything more high grade all the time is so in alignment with the philosophy of high grade living that people resonate with it deeply and they get to experience it, whether it's how we communicate with our students or how we educate them, or how the experiences that we get to provide.
Yes.
Because we're so engaged, it's not just like a rollout of something, we're so deeply embedded and engaged in it, and the way in which we choose to live is in alignment with what we're teaching. I think there's a truth to it. There's a resonance that people really love. So I also caveat, I don't necessarily believe that just because you love something that you're going to thrive in it. That whole revenue thing, like just find something you love.
Yes, and the money will come.
And it will flow. It's
totally.
I just think that's such a load of nonsense. But the other thing is, I think that we bring a work ethic from our old background. So working in creative industries, and particularly in advertising, and pulling that work ethic. Anne and I work incredibly hard. yes, we love what we do. So absolutely, it doesn't always feel like work. But anyone that tells me a bad statement doesn't feel like work.
Yes, there's something wrong there.
Yeah, totally. Like, that we're very aware that there's going to, like with any business, there's bits you love, there's bits you don't love, and how do we ensure that we still have integrity and authenticity even in the bits that we don't necessarily like, and become better at them. So I just always like to throw that in, because I hear so many people go, I love, meditation, or I love learning about myself, or I love yoga. Maybe I should just dedicate my life to, sharing and teaching that. It's like, it's just as hard work as anything else. It's not you're going to leave the corporate job and become a yoga teacher and like waft around all day. Not if you want to earn a living from it. There's going to have to be a level of tenacity and grit and sweat, like in anything in life. If you want to be the best at it, you're going to have to work at it.
Totally. And I always think it's not like you turn one tap off and the other tap just turns on. There's that transition and building your reputation, all those things that I guess you've had to redo in a way because you had a different identity when you were working in the more commercial aspects of advertising and branding and consumer goods. So, but I can see how some of that knowledge would definitely help you because you're a realist about how you need to scale the business and what you need to be paying attention to as well.
Yeah, definitely. And also, I was always an incredibly hyperactive, enthusiastic, driven individual when we were in advertising and branding and marketing. And I'm the same person now. I'm the least. People have an idea of like, oh, the Zen meditation teacher. And I'm not that person. I still swear. I still, run amok. I had a really fun time and go at everything like a bull at a gate. And to some people that's refreshing. To some people, I'm sure it's bewildering. They're like, hang on a minute, I thought you'd be all calm and wearing, white linen. And I've just chosen to make sure that who I was is still who I am, as opposed to, reinvent myself as some, new meditation teacher. So I think that the transition has been much easier in that regard.
So have you had any special mentors or inspirational people that you can maybe articulate how they've guided you and what they've taught you about success in life?
Definitely. I've been very, very fortunate since I got my first mentor when I was 19, and that was Tina Englund when I was studying interior architecture, and she was just incredible and opened me up to the world of mentors and what having someone guide you creatively and intellectually and what that looks like. So I've always sought out amazing mentors and inspirational people, and there would honestly be too many people to list right now.
Of course, but is there anyone particular? Obviously, you've articulated one lady that stands out. Is anyone else perhaps in the practice you're in now that you definitely attribute some of your success to?
Absolutely. So Maharishi Mahesh Yogi is just one of the most incredible teachers, and particularly in regards to what he was able to create from an educational perspective. Sri M, that's SRIM, is another teacher that I study under all the time, who I love. He's based in India. My karate sensei is just incredible. His name is Mark Gravel, and he has so much integrity and grace in what he does, and his dedication and pursuit of personal excellence is mind-blowing. His kindness and his generosity, but his fierceness. He's just the perfect teacher. They are some just at the moment. I don't know him personally, but I adore the works of Brené Brown and also Pema Chodron. Also Tara Brach. There's some really fantastic teachers who are witty. They teach spiritual knowledge, but they're witty and engaged and real. And that's what I'm looking for in teachers. I'm not into pedestaling anymore. And I'm not a big fan of the guru, which is the idea that you let go of all your boundaries and everything you have in pursuit of one person's knowledge. I think it's really important to stay grounded in that experience.
Totally. So some final words. What would be your favourite statement or a little experience for you that sums up the politics of meditation?
So I'm going to look at this through the lens of the word politics, and particularly for anyone listening that's been involved in anything that they saw as conscious or spiritual, the politics are still deep in that area. Interestingly, I've encountered more politics in meditation and self-development that I even did in advertising. It's a minefield of hierarchy and demanding individuals, and it ironically can be really rife with ego. So my summary of that is that if anyone is looking to engage in anything that's spiritual or self-development, just make sure that you leave the politics at the door. You don't have to engage with them, and you don't have to be a part of it. You can go there for knowledge and practice and make it your own. So always use your inner moral compass and stay in alignment with your values, even as you learn and grow and expand as a human. And I think that is a blueprint you could apply to a new workplace or a new project.
Totally. I was going to say, that's like life advice, really, isn't it?
It is, yeah. But I think what happens to people is they go, I understand that in those areas of my life, but when it comes to me developing as a person, as opposed to my relationship in something, everyone can sometimes get a little confused around, something might make me uncomfortable about that, but I guess everyone's got my best interests at heart because this is all about being a better person, right? And that's not always necessarily true. So I think we need to be really discerning in seeking out people, and particularly teachers in these areas, that are really aligned with what we would like, that are living the lives that we go, yep, you know what, that makes perfect sense to me, as opposed to just ignoring a lot of stuff because, I guess they're spiritual and they've got heaps of followers, so that everything must be fine, right? Which you see happening a lot.
Absolutely. That's really great sage advice. And if you do want to connect further with Jacqui Lewis, there will be some details of the Broad Place and her social media links on our show notes. But you've been listening to The Politics of Everything. Until next time, keep well. Thanks for listening today. If you've enjoyed The Politics of Everything, we thrive on feedback. So please add a short review and share the podcast with your network and your friends and family. I'm also always on the hunt for fabulous new guests, so if you've got a view to share and an idea how to get our listeners excited, please email me at amber@bespokecoms, that's BESPOKECOMMS.com.au, and we'll be sure to get back to you. Until next time.